No, not too bad.
Has Judy made it yet?
She just got it arrived. Here alone?
Yeah, just me today. You're gonna have to put up. Yeah, you told me that the other day. You said it was me and Sherman.
You got your Apple ID?
No, I never even knew what it was.
I'm gonna go sit on that instance.
From the get-go.
I'm gonna have to get up and talk.
That's right.
Are you gonna sit down there so
I'm gonna
we can
sit down
talk?
there so I can talk.
Is Tim come
I haven't heard from Tim. I just texted him to see how close he was, but
to give me updates? No, I didn't see Mrs. Redmond.
Okay,
Call this
come on,
meeting
let's
to
go.
order. Hang on. Let me get going here so we can get out of here. Okay. Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
Let's see
Jason, you ready?
Jay, I'm ready.
Grab the hammer, grab the mallet out of there.
Good evening, residents and our viewing public. I'm calling the Village of Broadview and the President and Board of Trustees. This is for the Finance Committee meeting for October 9th, 2019. The meeting's being called to order at 7:36 p.m. We'll take a roll call at this time. I'm Trustee Judy Abraham, Finance Chair.
John Tierney, trustee.
Tom Hood, Treasurer and Budget Officer.
At this time, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. At this time, we'll take a moment of silence. Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody, public comment? No, none? None tonight. Next, item number 3 is our audit update. You're up, Mr. Budget Officer, Mr. Tom Hood.
Unfortunately, Tim hasn't arrived yet, but I can tell you that they are moving right along. I was in contact with them earlier this week. They had some additional requests that we're getting back to them,
Okay,
and hopefully we'll wrap this thing up.
okay. All right, that was item number 3. And then if our finance director, Mr. Hicks, is he in the building? Is that what you said?
He's just pulling up.
Yeah, we'll go to the next one, then we can come back to item number 3. Item number 4 is the new bank for sponsored events.
Do you want to speak to it, or do you want to speak to it?
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to make a request for the Finance Committee to consider us having a separate bank account for our sponsored village activities, such as our annual health fair and some of the other activities that we have. That creates transparency and accountability so that we don't get into discussions on what certain expenses is for, because it's outlined and it's very detailed. And it would be only for village-sponsored events that would give us some leeway to where we can write out for the activities that we have for those that we have sponsorships for. So I'm asking for that consideration to be brought before the board for approval through Chase Bank account.
Chase. Okay. Any questions?
I don't have any, no.
Trustee Tierney, on the
No.
account?
How do you, how do you want this presented? Us to the board?
Well,
Or is it gonna be
the
a
finance
ordinance?
team could get the banking information,
Okay.
and we'll just bring it up for a resolution for the board to approve, to authorize us to have an additional bank account for village-sponsored activities. We have that those accounts set up in the fire department as well as the police department.
Okay.
And I think it works very well because the monies will still get expended out of the general fund, so I'm told, and let me know if I'm wrong. But the monies that we collect, we'll be able to see the money that's collected and the monies that's expended out of that for those activities.
Okay.
And then we,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and we can give the Board of Trustees a list of village-sponsored events that we've been sponsoring for the past 2 years,
Okay.
so that you all know exactly what events that we do sponsor and how we ask for our local businesses and for those that support the Village of Broadview for sponsorship donations.
Okay. And each department will have its own line item for?
No, it's just, it'll be just for the village, and it would just be for the sponsored, like I said, like our annual health fair.
Okay.
So this year, we had the annual health fair, and we collected about $9,000 for that activity. And so throughout the year, we promote health and wellness throughout the village, so we want to be able to either buy trinkets or promote, like October is
expend
breast
funds?
cancer
Is that what you wanna do?
awareness.
Okay.
So that would be some of the monies that we can use out of that, what we collected, because we may not use the whole amount that we collect as a sponsored event. But if we do, we have extra to do a little bit more for like signature stuff like prostate cancer awareness or breast cancer awareness.
Okay,
So essentially, what we're doing is we're segregating out monies that are being donated to the village and matching the expenses that are paid out of those monies so that it doesn't get commingled with our general fund.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you're good on that, Mr. Budget Officer?
Yes.
Okay, so will that be a line item then for the budget? Because it's always gonna fluctuate, correct? Because of these.
Well, I'm going to tell you,
village-
we kind of do it now, and from past budget hearings, you probably had been there when people questioned about miscellaneous revenues
Right,
and
right,
miscellaneous
right.
expenses. That's exactly what we're talking about.
But now
here.
we're clarifying it.
We're
on the
clarifying
village.
it,
Okay.
and I've actually had a couple discussions with the auditors already about maybe putting it in a separate department code. Because it's not something you can really budget for, because DUI funds, sometimes they might get $2,500 for something they did, but then they'll spend that $2,500, but if they don't get it, they don't spend it. So it's kind of,
It's a unique.
yeah, I
it'd be
think it's kind of a unique use. It's not really, we don't have the revenue budgeted, we don't have the expense budgeted, because it only happens if it occurs.
if it occurs.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Finance Director Hicks?
No, would you also, for anything that the village is actually sponsoring, would we put those funds in there and pay it out of there? Like if we were sponsoring like the Little League Baseball or something?
I didn't think about that. I was just thinking about those that sponsor the Village of Broadview and the events that we have for sponsor events. We do create in our, when we do our annual budget, we do create, allocate certain amount for different events, but like signature events like that, because it's a big community event and it costs a little bit more than what we budget for, so we ask for sponsorships for that.
All good?
Yeah,
Okay, and then how soon would you like this to be on? Would this be something you'd want on the next agenda then?
I would, if we could have it for the next agenda, that's fine. If not, it could go on the first one in November.
Okay, Trustee Tierney, what do you think?
Yep. Do you need a motion? We have to approve it now? I mean, or you
It
can
has to
just
be
write it
approved
up,
at the
have it
board
written up?
meeting.
They gotta
this
put
is for
together the
discussion.
ordinance for
Together,
us
yeah.
to review.
But yeah, we'd like to see it on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So we're gonna put it on the next agenda?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll get the copies of it and all that with the regular paperwork that comes for the meeting. All right, awesome. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, for that presentation. Okay, are you ready for the audit update?
yeah.
You ready for that, or you want me to go to water rate?
No, we can go to the audit.
Audit, okay.
yeah.
At this time, we're gonna do the audit update with Finance Director Hicks.
So the auditors have re-engaged to do field work. I think they'll be out here tomorrow, right, Leticia? So they'll be out doing some test work for one of the pension, is it fire? Doing some field work testing for fire, as well as following up on a few open items from the financial audit. And we were able to work with Locus to get the issue resolved that we were having with the trial balance and some of the issues that we were experiencing. So we were able to get some things done and get them some updated trial balances and work papers. So they'll be continuing their work probably starting next week for the financial audit, but tomorrow they'll be out for the fire audit, and then they've already requested some more information and more samples for both pension, fire, and police, and then the pension audit is going on as well, which is a continuation of, I forget the GASB number, but we implemented it early last year, and so this is the second year to that engagement, so which is the OPEP, which is the retirement part of the pension. So they'll be doing that work as well. So, as always, we're busy.
Good,
Yep.
appreciate that. And everything's moving along, we're all good.
Everything's moving along, yeah. I think this is probably, I would believe that probably next year we'll be in a position to do an RFP Baker Tilly has been auditors for some time, and so it would be great, once we've had an opportunity to clean things up and get to a certain point that, it would be good to do a RFP for new auditors.
Okay.
Or just auditors, period, to see what other organizations are out there to, to see what competitive pricing we may be able to get.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Trustee Terry, did you want to
Okay.
comment on anything that Director Hicks
Nope.
spoke on?
If we do go out for bids, these companies are gonna have to get caught up with where we are, where Baker Tilly has already done it for a couple years, few years. Do they know where to find the paperwork, find the numbers?
Well,
to look at?
that's the work papers are public property, so they would be something that they would turn over to, if there was a successor, that would be something that they would have to, that they would, in professional courtesy, turn those things over. So it wouldn't be that big of a transition. But I think there's, we've worked with Baker Tilly for a long time, and it's always good to just see,
Yep.
because your current provider may give you a better price, or, once they see competition.
So we can
and
get a
so-
better comparison. I
Yeah,
like that. I think that's,
so,
Yep.
because Baker Tilly has been an auditor for
Quite a
10
while.
years at least.
10 years.
10 years?
So it's just prudent practice to always do an RFP for, for any kind of service that you're getting. You don't have to go with or we could just do an RFQ, But there's always a prudent practice of making sure that you go out to see what's out there, because we don't, like I said, maybe don't have to do a full RFP, but even just an RFQ to get, to get some quotes from additional firms.
No, I like that idea. Trustee Terry, what do you think about it? I like
Yep.
it, just to get a
Yeah,
comparison.
that's fine. I know the fire department pension fund uses them, so we use them for quite a while. So, yeah,
But it'd be nice to see.
it'd be
just a
nice to see if we
different
get
set of
better rates,
eyes.
sure.
Yeah, different set of eyes looking at the documents, seeing
Definitely.
what they can see and what they can find, and then just look at the cost factor. I mean, I think that should just be, should be a responsibility, especially on stuff like that. you know.
Definitely.
Let it go that way, just
Yeah.
so we can get a different bid. Okay.
Did you say something about the testing, the fire department testing and pension, or just the pension fund?
They're doing testing for the pension fund.
Testing for the pension?
Yeah, so they'll be here tomorrow to, they choose a sample, and then so they're gonna
Oh, okay.
do audit testing on the sample that they chose. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Director Hood, any questions?
No questions.
We're all good on that? Okay, so we covered the audit, the new bank. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, is our water rate discussion. Oh, real quick, Mr. Hood, my village administrator, Ms. Jones, did you have any comments on the topics we discussed? The new bank-sponsored events, or the audit update, or going out? Okay, thank you.
Tim, you want to run the screen down?
Oh, get him.
this again, okay.
And we have to bring the packet,
Well,
Mr. Hood? You got the packet?
There's not a whole lot new here.
Which one is it?
Do I look like I'm?
You need lights out, or?
Which one is it? Should be the far left. Far left?
You can turn the lights off right in front.
You want the lights off in front?
That shows up pretty good. Perfect.
I don't need your fancy screen because I've got this. Start with sweep. was the historical downtrend of the income being generated by the water fund. And we talked in an earlier meeting about all of the price increases that have occurred over the last 10 years and how that has slowly eaten away at what we earn each year. Jason might have to stand here and say, click here. See what happens? Do I gotta go up here every time?
No.
What's going on? Let me get out of here.
Why don't you just try the arrow?
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, folks. In either the first or second meeting, we went back and looked at what the increases were in each year from 2009 through current. The one year that stood out was 2015, which was the last time the village took a close look at this because of the decrease in earnings in the water fund. At that time, we passed on the full 15% increase. Chicago passed 15% increase. The water agency passed it on the 15%, and we passed it on to our customers at that time. But since then, we have not been passing on the increases, and we have never caught up from 2009 through 2014. A little hard to read up there, but the purpose of this slide was to illustrate that over this time period, the city of Chicago increased at 104%. The Broadview Westchester Joint Water Agency increased our cost, what we pay them, by 89%. Broadview passed on to its customers an increase of only 37%. So the water agency ate some of the cost that Chicago raised their water, and Broadview ate the majority of the cost that the water increase that was passed on to us. And that's kind of why we've gotten the situation today that we are. Our main, the cost of our source of water has went up drastically, and we have not adjusted the water rates to reflect that. In our second meeting, we had put in a rate increase proposal, and the way this was created was immediately we were going to recapture the rate increases that occurred from 2015 till current. Those were rate increases that there was an ordinance for, but it just never happened. So once we got those increases in, we divided the remainder, or we divided the difference between what the water rates would be if all increases were passed on and what we were currently charging, and we divided that up into 4 separate years, so that 4 years from now, we will be back to where we would be if we passed on the rate each year as it happened. So this here is the pricing schedule that we originally came up with, and the increase for each, the first increase in the following 4 years, so all the 5 increases of immediately. What I was trying to show in this slide is that currently, under our old water meters, we were billing in 100 cubic feet, which turns out to be 748 gallons. Our new meters measure in 1,000-gallon increments. So our current cost for residents is $6.60. But because the new meters, the units will have an extra 252 gallons in there, the current cost is $8.82. And I'm trying to get everybody to make that conversion in their head, because the price is higher, but you're paying for more water. So you'll use less units. Does anybody have any questions on that? Pretty straightforward? Okay. And let me back up. So we actually presented this in one of our other finance committee meetings, and the mayor met with some of the local business folks, and they had an idea that we kind of liked. And they were thinking that everybody would be treated the same. Whether you're industrial, commercial, business, government, but there would be a volume discount. So everybody will pay the same for the first tier of units. If you make it to the second tier, you pay a different rate. If you make it to the third tier, you pay another discounted rate. So we came up with 3 tiers. Tier 1, 0 to 25 units, captures 93%, let me hold on, 94% of the residents in Broadview. There are another 3.5%, which are primarily businesses, that get from the 26 to 50. And there's an even smaller percentage, 2.5%, that use over 50 units per month. So there is a volume discount built into this. So the big users will still get a discount like they did under the old rates, but it'll be set up on one set of tiers and one set of tiers that will apply to all users. You have a question, sir?
Real quick, I don't want to interrupt. A majority of the residents will be,
Sir,
I'm sorry.
excuse me. You have to use the mic. Thank you. Yes, it's on.
I'm sorry. The majority of the residents will be in that tier 1, if I'm understanding this correctly. So
Correct.
if a business were to reach the tier 2 level, would all 48 of their units be billed at the tier 2 level, or would it be the first 25 billed at tier 1 and then 25 through 48 billed at tier 2?
The second method.
The latter? Okay.
Everybody pays the same for the first 25. Everybody pays the same for 26 through 50. And I'm probably one of the few people that'll ever hit that tier 2 if I have to fill my swimming pool. You know, I've thought of examples of, okay, when would a resident actually, because most of these users are in the business classifications. But there could be situations where if you have a big pool, if you water your lawn a lot, there could be situations where you might bump up into the next tier and receive the discount, but I would say the majority, by far, the vast majority is going to always be in tier 1. And this is after going back to a couple of our business clients, our customers. They seem to have liked this method too. So we're recommending we go with the tiered method. The one exception that I've thought of to this would be our sprinklers, which is just a flat, there's a classification that just charges $14. They hardly ever use water. If they test them maybe, or there's a fire, they'll use water. But most months there's just no water billing. It's just that flat $14 service fee to have the hookup. Any questions? All right, thank you.
I think one of the reasons why the customers or the businesses was so accepting, because they know for almost 5 years that they've been receiving cost savings that the village has been subsidizing. So not only have the residents, the village been subsidizing the cost increases that have come from the city of Chicago, the residents, but the businesses have benefited tremendously. So I think they were not shocked that we came. They just probably, like what took us so long to get to them. And I think the other thing too is that they understand that we're not raising the rates just for the sake of raising the rates. They understand the increase in cost, but they also understand what we're trying to accomplish, which is being able to fund the street projects, because that's getting to a point to where that can't be continuously funded out of operating funds. And so to be able to address the issue in a timely, cost-effective manner, it is going to require going out and taking advantage of the IEPA low interest rate loan, so that we can be able to address projects in mass scale, as opposed to what we've been doing now, which is just treating some of the symptoms and then also just getting to some of the issues as they arise. And then I think since this administration had come in, one of the mandates was trying to be more proactive. And so you can see when a water main breaks, that they were replacing the piping as opposed to just repairing it previously. And so, but it's just come to that point where it's more prudent and more fiscally responsible to do this in large chunks before something major happens, right?
Is there any other questions? Trustee Tierney? Madam Mayor, did you want to comment? Because I know you had spearheaded a lot to have these meetings and discuss this with our business owners. Did you want to mention anything?
So Tom, can you just kind of discuss on when we plan on launching and the effective date and where the increases are with the 30 cent and then going into the percentage on an annual basis?
Sure. The first, and I think we need to train ourselves, because the 30-cent increase is based upon the old unit price. So it would be going from $6.60 to $6.90. With the new meters, the current price is $8.82. The new price would be $9.23. They both reflect the 4.55% increase. That 4.55% increase would occur on January 1st. Then, at the beginning of each fiscal year, starting with 5/1/2020, we would see the other increases, which I just closed this. I could pop it up there for you. 10.47. Year 2 is 9.48. Year 3 is 8.22. And in year 5, it's 7.97%. So this would be 21, 22. At the beginning of the year of 2023, on May 1st, then we will have passed on all these increases over the next 4 years. And that's another thing that when we talk to the businesses, they appreciated us doing it in a phased-in way so that they can plan and adjust their budgets for it. Whereas if we just came in tomorrow and said, we're knocking it up to, you know, let me look at my other rates, I don't want to just make something up here. If we were just going to knock it up right away, they would be blindsided and not planned it into their costs of making their products, or reflected it in the price of what they're charging for the products. So giving them a heads up that this is going to gradually come on gives them time to plan budget-wise, and plus it would also give them time to maybe consider water efficiency programs or something that might cut their costs in that manner. So we're not blindsiding our businesses. We're giving them a heads up, and this is going to happen over the next 4 years, and this is where you're at today, and this is where you're going to be at the end of it. And we're giving this all to them up front. Did I answer
Any
your
other
question?
questions from anybody? Questions or comments? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hood, for that presentation. Thank you. Meet back up here.
Yeah, of course.
Does anybody have any comments, anything to say on the presentations? Trustees?
No, I've seen this presentation about 4 or 5 times now. So I think with the new units and gallons, I think that's the only thing that's changed. Glad to hear that the businesses are buying into this and they understand the problem and situation. And moving forward, I think it's going to be great. So I'm all for it. We got to get it on the agenda somewhere and get this passed.
Again, Madam Mayor, what timeline are you looking for this to appear on the agenda?
So I'm asking the Finance Committee to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for us to, well, we'll go ahead and start creating the ordinances and putting the breakout of the prices for the ordinance to be created, to be presented to the board for effective January 1, the 30-cent increase to April 30th, and then May 1, the percentages moving forward. I think that's conducive to do it that way, because if we do it within our budget year, we'll always be reminded that we have an increase coming up, and we can let the residents and the businesses know that a water rate increase will take place. at this time, 30 days before May 1, so that they can adjust and make the adjustments accordingly for their budgets. So as soon as we can get the water ordinance updated and amended, because we do have an ordinance in place that need to be amended, so we need to go through that. So we'll work with the village administrator and the water department, because there's some other things in that ordinance that need to be updated. So once we get the updates and we go through the language with the legal team and the finance team, give the final blessings on the ordinance to be approved by the board. So I'm hoping to have all of that done probably by the second meeting in November, if not the first one, because we want to make sure that we send letters out to all residents, businesses that's going to be impacted by this increase with an official letter saying that the rates are going to take place, and so that they have the timeline and they can adjust. We don't want to wait till the last minute. So hopefully November 1 would be my target date, but if for some unseen circumstances may happen, the second meeting in November, and then by December or the end of November, we should be able to get a letter out to the entire community as it relates to the water rates. In our last newsletter, we talked about the water rate increase. So I mean, we've been talking about it through the finance committee meetings. We put it in writing. Excuse me, the finance team and myself have met with some of our business partners as it relates to the water increase. So I think we've gotten all of the answers, answered. But once we solidify this, I think we got maybe one more conversation coming up on Friday. And once we have that conversation, I think we'll be ready to go to put the ordinance together and update the water ordinance and move forward.
Any questions on that, trustees?
Nope, not for
So we
me,
got a
no.
good timeline? No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, that definitely starts putting the wheels in motion.
Yeah, so the one question, I think there's a couple comments, a question for Leticia. The percentage of residents and businesses that have completed their new meter install, do we know that?
Yeah, where are we with that?
Well, right now, no. I know we're getting close. At the last board meeting where Director Ames had expressed to us, where had told us that we were at 90%.
Okay.
Of being complete. So we still have residents, and we also have some business that we need to transition and change over. So we will have actual numbers come our next board. Sorry, thank you. We will have our actual numbers at our next board meeting.
Yeah, so the significance of that, and I don't want this to be lost, is that, that was another strategic decision that here we go, we changed the meters, now we're going to get more accurate reads from the residents, and then what I anticipate happening is that the increases probably won't be as great for residents because they'll be more efficient with their water usage, and then we won't see as much water lost, and we'll be able to pinpoint that. And then so I think that that just can't be dismissed. I think a lot of folks didn't really understand why that decision was made and why we did what we did. But I think that's just another kudos to the mayor and team for, making that decision and then making sure that was in place, because again, these are more efficient meters. You look at, meters have been about 20, 25 years old. And now that you have this more modern feeds from the meter and reads from the meter, I think you even mentioned it in your comments about, that you noticed your own usage and how you're able to pinpoint that. And I think that's going to go hand in hand. And so I think residents are going to not see, they hear increase, but it may not be as big as they may anticipate with the new meters.
I agree with that, and I also want to say, by us going to the smart meters and changing from cubic feet to gallons, that's like a big deal in the business world. So through the discussions that we've had with our business partners as it relates to the water rate increase, when we told them that we was going from cubic feet to gallons, that was a big deal for them, because believe it or not, and this was something learning for me and probably the team, is every month when they get the water bill, they have to manually convert that cubic feet to 1,000 gallons to coincide with their budget. So now that we going from cubic feet to gallons, it's easier to understand. I think it'll be easier for the residents to understand because it's confusing the old way. The smart meters will allow us to do that. I know we're in the process of making sure our accounting software accommodate that change, and I don't know where we are. Ms. Jones probably in our next board meeting, when she give her updates, can give us an update on where we are with the conversion, because that's another key component to us making that January 1 date. Is making sure that our accounting software can accommodate that cubic feet change to the 1,000 gallon. So we know that the accounting software can do it. It's just making sure that it's implemented. So I think we're probably working on those that have the smart meters in place. So we're working through that channel to make sure that we are doing that conversion in a timely fashion and where people can understand it. And still, if people have questions or concerns, we want them to be educated on the process. So even when we went from the smart meters, from the old meters to the smart meters, and we had all of the complaints about water rates increase, and a number of things took place with that, and people found out that water was leaking that they didn't even think was leaking, and that was a lot of the issues where it was within the resident, didn't have anything to do with the village when those bills got spiked up. So yeah, going from the meters to a smart meter, going from cubic feet to 1,000, and then implementing a water change where it's very transparent, it holds us accountable, and it shows that, you know, over the next 5 years, we actually have a plan in place. And I think that's huge for us in the village of Broadview, because now we can start seeing the plan, and we working the plan and the numbers. The data don't lie. So I think, I mean, kudos to the finance team for doing a good job. I know it's been a lot of work and a lot of early meetings, but it was well worth it at the end of the day. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that. Ms. Jones, did you have anything to add, or are you going to wait to the regular board meeting and give that report? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you, thank you. Anybody have anything in closing that they want to mention or say?
Nope.
Again, I just want to thank, you know, Mr. Tom Hood for doing this, as well as Mr. Hicks, for you guys to put in the time and to work with everybody here to present these type of plans and very detailed. Again, I think it's definitely important. Madam Mayor, thank you for all the work you've done behind the scenes and putting this together. Same thing with Mrs. Jones, being, you know, getting everybody accommodated to this. And excuse me, I've asked you a few times, like, where we're at in the percentages, so I appreciate you on the updates for that. Because as Mr. Hicks has said, there is a big difference, and this is going to be significant, so, and it's going to be helpful, and that's the key. We want the transition for our residents to go smoothly, so I think it's being widely accepted. I haven't heard any complaints, and, you know, from the residents, they think it's better anyway, so it made it easier. That's what I've heard from residents, and I'm sure our business owners, like you said, Madam Mayor, are appreciating that we are addressing this after all these years. Right, Mr. Hicks, with where we're at and what's been going on, and Mr. Hood. So again, thank you guys for all your work. My trustees, my fellow trustees, any last comments?
No, well, anytime I had a question, I could email, call, or see him in person, and I got the answers from him. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Trustee, Andrew, anything to say? I think this team is awesome. No, I appreciate you guys coming. Even our clerk comes to our finance meetings, and I think that's important as well, because it's another public figure that's, you know, obviously knowing what's going on in case any questions arise. So I definitely appreciate the teamwork. To our residents at home, thank you for attending. We do have information available if you need anything, and we also have, anything else we have?
No.
Nope, that was it, just the packets. So if anybody needs the packets, we do have them available. At this time, I'll ask for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, good evening. God bless.
Good thing you were here, we would never have been able to adjourn.